podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. Because every situation is unique, you should consult with a qualified legal professional for advice specific to your circumstances. If you need legal guidance, please reach out to an accredited attorney or contact us to schedule a consultation. Hello, welcome back to the Veteran Benefits Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Deming. Today we have a special guest, Cory Gold. He is a disabled Army veteran and the founder of Worth Their Weight. So thank you for joining us, Cory. I had an intro prepared, but as we were just talking beforehand, I think it's probably better for you to kind of tell your story.
Sure, absolutely. And first of all, I'm so excited to be here. I was reading your profile and I'm just so impressed with everything that you've done. And I hope we can talk a little bit about you as well. If not, maybe we can another time. But anyway, like you said, I'm Cory. I joined the Army back in 2015. I had what's called a Ranger contract, which is a guarantee when you enlist to have the opportunity to be selected for the 75th Ranger Regiment, to go to Ranger selection, which was a dream of mine. So I excelled in basic training. I did really well and moved on to the second phase, which is airborne school, where you learn how to jump out of a plane. If you've ever seen Band of Brothers, we were just talking about that. It's, when everybody jumps out of a plane one by one, and it's called static line. So the line pulls your chute out as you're jumping. I'm exiting the plane, and I had a bad exit on my third jump, and I hit the side of the plane. My lines got all twisted up, which are the things that attach to the top of the parachute, got all twisted up. And I hit the ground just a lot harder than you're supposed to, and had broken back, traumatic brain injury, and a lot of really weird psychological symptoms that came up after that, which I had never experienced before. And anyways, very shortly after that, I was discharged from the military, honorable discharged, and I was just kind of dumped into the world. And I wound up, go ahead.
When you had your traumatic brain injury, did they diagnose it as a traumatic brain injury, like right at the time of injury, or is that something you found out later based on symptoms? How did the diagnosis of your traumatic brain injury come about?
So it was really interesting how they did it. So the Martin Army Hospital in Columbus is a beautiful hospital. First of all, I spent a lot of time there, and it's a really beautiful hospital. But right after impact, I hobbled over to wherever you go to find somebody, and called for help, and they took me and they evaluated my head and made sure that there wasn't any bleeding or anything like that. But then, judging by the grade of the concussion, they determined it to be a traumatic brain injury. But like I mentioned before, I didn't really, other than a headache and a really stiff neck, I didn't really notice the symptoms that came afterward, which were the psychological symptoms, until about I want to say a week or so later. And that's when it was more okay, there's a little bit more going on. So I think, does that answer your question?
It's interesting, I guess it depends on, what year it was when the injury happened, what unit you were with, what equipment they have, how good the medical team was.
I see what you're saying. Yes.
We see a lot of people that they get hit in the head and then they experience these symptoms, and it's years later where they're like, I wonder if that was a traumatic brain injury. And then there's other people where, you have a concussion and they're like, yeah, that's a TBI. But it's also because the brain is the command center for the whole body.
Right.
It can impact different people in different ways. And it's, there's just no telling from the injury. I mean, at least from my perspective, maybe the doctors can tell oh yeah, you hit this side, you're going to have language issues, or this side, you're going to have cognitive issues. But you hit your head, it could impact a number of things.
I think I was kind of in the middle between because it was way back in the day, it was you hit your head and it was oh, get up, buddy, you rang your bell, keep going. It was nobody cared. You hit your head. And now, especially I talked with my psychiatrist, and he was telling me about how much more research there was out. And there was a summit he would go to, directly about traumatic brain injuries, and football people were there and military people were there. And there's a lot of research right now. So you're talking about 10, 11 years ago, I was kind of in the middle there where I went to a TBI clinic, and I had to go through a battery of tests to make sure like I didn't need continued care in the hospital and that I could be discharged. But I didn't get any continuing care afterwards. Like I wasn't like referred
Mm.
anywhere. They gave me my packet and it was like, see you later. You're out the door. And I remember one of the, like my staff sergeant was like, all right, well, if you get to feeling better at some point, you can always join again. Like, it was so weird. It's like I was out of this club and that, I don't know, I lost all of my
I mean, I
friends.
think, and we don't do a lot with like the discharge portion of it because we focus exclusively on the veteran disability
Sure.
side. But I've heard stories, I think sometimes depending on the unit again, depending on the year and, the command, if they acknowledge that you need continuing care, I think they might not be able to discharge you. Like they have to keep you until
Correct.
you're fit for
Correct.
discharge.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like, yeah, we'll sign those papers. Like, don't you want to get on with your life? We'll sign those
That's
papers.
what it
So
was. That's what it was. It was like, hey, here's what you need to say in order to get out of here. Don't you want to get out of here? I'm like, yeah, I do. I want to go see my girlfriend. It's like, I want to go home.
yeah.
And nobody's like, hey, bud. I remember I had one drill sergeant that was like, if you guys get hurt, go to sick call. And he didn't say why. He was like, just go, like, get it documented. Make sure they know. He's like, we're not going to give you shit for it. Just go to sick call. So that was the only inkling that I had that it would be important to know, like, what the Army did to me during my time in service. But, uh, but yeah, no, I spent 4 years, just shy of 4 years after I got discharged until the time that not that I filed, that I even had any idea that VA benefits existed. I had no
Wow.
idea. And which is crazy because I'm a researcher. Like I'm somebody that Googles way too much, that overanalyzes. And, I still had like that military spirit, like that part wasn't ripped out of me when I left. I was still like a soldier at heart. So I was very much into like military stuff and knowing what was going on. And even so, I had no idea. I had no idea. I thought that I was just on my own. And it wasn't until I met a guy, he was a Marine, still is a Marine, excuse me, at a dog park. And this was back in late 2019, early 2020. And he was like, yeah, we were talking. I told him my story. He was like, oh yeah, I bet you're, 100%, aren't you? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, you don't, you don't know about VA benefits? I was like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. He was like, dude, they send me $4,000 a month because I'm 100%. And who's pretty beat up himself. He deployed a few times. And I was like, what the heck? So I filed. And sure enough, here I am now, 100% disabled. I'm living a very full life here in my Airstream with my wife and my daughter and my pets. And it's a total turnaround from where I was for all those years. I mean, I just mentally and physically exhausted and in pain. And, now I'm able to get the treatments that I need. And I don't want that gap for anybody else. Like, I don't want people to have to go 4 years or 1 year or even 4 months between getting out and being like, okay, let me figure out what happened to me while I was in. And if the Army breaks you, or, I say the Army, if the military breaks you, they have to buy you. Like, they have to pay for those things.
Yeah.
And I want more people to know about that. And I don't think that the knowledge is out there yet.
There's certain units, and I think if you're retiring, you get put through the TAPS or different branches call it different things, and
Yeah,
so there's certain units that get very good
you're right.
general transition care. They have specialists that walk you through. This is what you need to document. Here's how you put in your claim. Then
Yes.
there's other units, or if you aren't retiring, you didn't do your 20 years, medical discharges, and they just kind of want to like get the paperwork done and get you out,
Yes.
whatever it is. Like there's some people, there's that gap that people don't know about it, or they think, oh, that's just for Vietnam vets, or that's just for
Right.
World War II vets and
If you
people
lose
who
a
have
limb,
amputations or something. Like I
yeah,
don't have any. There's always
exactly.
somebody worse off than me. So
Yes. Yes. And that's another thing that we get a lot. Or like, oh, there's somebody who needs it more. And it's like, there's enough of it to go around. Like, there is $400 billion that the VA allocates to benefits. Like, there's enough to go around. And I'm passionate about this, obviously. If it affects you, right? Like if you're going and you're not seeking these benefits that you're entitled to, um, like obviously that affects you, right? But it also affects the people around you. And like by not
Mm.
taking that burden off of yourself, it's selfish to your loved one. It's selfish to the people that you love because they don't want to see you suffer, because it's not that it affects them, it's that they love you and they don't want you to suffer if you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many financial benefits for there's caregiver support. There's, if you get service connected disabilities, you can get medical care for those disabilities through
Yeah.
VA at no cost. So people who are not treating for stuff that happened during service because they can't afford insurance and don't know about getting it filed. There's
Yeah.
the education benefits. If you're 100%, your spouse and kids can get money for higher education. I mean,
And health
there's so
insurance.
much that's not just about you, the veteran, that that
Yeah,
they can only access, your family can only access if you apply for benefits.
exactly.
So what point did you decide that you were going to found Worth Their Weight?
Sure. So back in like 2022, I was going through like another really like depressed episode, just very dark. I didn't know what to do with myself. There were days where I couldn't get out of bed. There were days where my wife had to bathe me. Um, and it was just such a dark time, and I was scrambling to figure out how to get out of this, because that's me. I don't like to sit in that hole. Like there's some people who like to sit in that hole and like get comfy and cozy and put a blanket on, and like that's fine, but I don't want to be around those people. Like I want to be around the people who want to get out, and I didn't want to be around myself. So I looked into this thing called Buddhism, which I had never. I was raised Jewish, so I had no idea anything about the Eastern religions, and just kind of researching some of that and that like more mindful philosophy, which has become very popular these days. And I was just like, okay, how do I take the attention off of myself and on to giving some love and care to somebody else? So I lived in downtown Chattanooga, and I walked around downtown a lot already, and I put together these kind of like homeless care kits. I went to Walmart and I bought a bunch of granola bars and hand sanitizer. Like I can't remember everything, but just like some food, some supplies, some like pain meds, various stuff like that. And not like nothing crazy, but like, a little travel thing, of Tylenol or whatever.
Yeah.
Just things to pieces of candy, things to make your life a little better. Socks, isn't, that was a big thing. And I would just walk around downtown with a backpack. And if I saw somebody, I'd be like, hey man, do you need some supplies? And I handed out tons of these things, and I wound up meeting a lot of people, and just it turned my life around, because I was finally, it brought it away from me, and I was able to give back to the world some. And so again, that was back in 2022. Again, after my daughter was born. So my daughter was born in, I promise I'm good at going somewhere with this. She was born at the end of 2024. And shortly after that, I went through a really bad postpartum depression episode. And it was another just like really, really dark time, just like it was before. And while I was in it, I was like, I feel like, that there's something that I need to do. Like, I don't know what it is, but I need to do something again, like I did before, but bigger. And I don't know what it is, but I'm going to figure it out. And surely enough, after I got out of that depression, I realized there are other people. And this one was so bad that if I didn't have my wife and my family, I don't think I would have made it out. Like, I don't think I would have gotten out alive. Like it was very, very dark. And so when I got out of that, I realized there are people out there who are suffering like that, as they're veterans who are suffering like that, who are untreated like I was. And because although I was seeing the VA, like I had like stopped taking my meds, like things just weren't going well. And they're suffering without care, like without a family member, without somebody, and they're alone. And some of them are on the streets, but some of them are also living completely normal lives and suffering in silence. And when you're in that hole, you can't just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go to the VA and file a claim. You can't seek out that help. You need somebody else to come and find you, and to come and give you that hand, give you that leg up, put that ladder down the well so that you can climb out. Because ultimately you have to climb, but somebody needs to give you that hand. So here we are. So here we are. We are actively going out and finding those veterans. And it's not just the person living under the bridge. It's not just homeless people on the streets, wearing their old army fatigues. It's people like me who worked full-time jobs and lived, very normal looking, successful lives, but were suffering every day and nobody knows about. And with a little bit of, extra care, with maybe a little bit of financial ease, like to not worry so much about bills, maybe with a little bit of a connection to like a psychiatrist or a psychologist or something like that, it'll make those people's lives easier. And I want to do it cost free for the veteran. That's the goal. I don't want them to have to pay anything.
So how are you finding veterans, and then are you guys helping them fill out their initial applications? Are
Yeah.
you connecting them with veteran service officers? Like what's
So we work we founded it. We are founded in Chattanooga, but we're national. So we have a 833 WTW vets. That's a national number. You can call that from anywhere, and you'll reach us. But we have multiple kind of avenues right now. So we have the Field Scout team, which is literally going out into the community, going to shelters, low income housing communities, and talking with people and like with leadership and whatnot, and saying, hey, this is a service that we offer. Do you have any veterans in your community? And we're finding mostly folks who are older, who are, in their 60s and older, who, are living with very little furniture, that need new furniture. Like we're working with a guy who needs a new bed, and we're working on getting him a new bed because we're on a shoestring budget right now. And we're like, how do we get this guy a bed? So we actually have an old queen mattress because we're living in Airstream now. We don't need it anymore. So I'm going to be in Chattanooga again this week, and I'm going to figure out a way to get him that mattress. So it's like we are in the community working with these folks directly, but we're also working on social media. So I don't know if you've ever seen on our website, we've got links to our social media pages. I'm putting out ads
we'll put
on.
links to all of that in the show notes here. So if you guys are watching this, you'll be able to find Cory and his team.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. So, on Instagram, I'll post videos of myself talking. I'm explaining exactly how I'm building this whole thing because I feel like that might be interesting to some people. Like, how do you start a nonprofit? Well, I'm documenting every step of the journey, all the ups and downs and the mistakes, but it's been really fun.
Yeah. So you've got team members that are going out and finding veterans. You're doing
Yes.
kind of some public social media outreach to
Yes.
find the veterans. And then once you get them, what are the services that you provide, or are you kind of a intermediary that connects them to other services? How does Worth Their Weight work?
So a great way to describe it, we're kind of the Uber of the VA, right? So we don't have any drivers. We just deliver the passengers to the drivers. We provide that platform. So we don't have any VSOs that work for the organization. What we do is we talk to the veteran, we sit down with them, we go through a whole bunch of like paperwork, not yes and no's and boxes like that. It's more like, hey, tell me about your time in service. Like, were you ever injured? Do you have what are you suffering from today? Because we want to make sure to pass that along to the VSO with the veteran so that they know a full picture of everything. Because a lot of times it's easy to say like, okay, what's going on with you? And you forget things. So we want to make sure that they're filing for anything that they may be qualified for. So we do that intake, and then we find a VSO in their state that we contact, and we determine if it's a good fit. And we've got some folks that we're already working with, and we're finding new VSOs every day. And we make that handoff, but it's not a handoff. We are with them the entire way. So after that initial meeting, they come back to us. We're like, okay, what do you need? What paperwork do you need? Do you need to get in with a doctor? Do you need to, do you need to get buddy letters, things like that? So, because we want them to have the best chance of obviously having a positive rating.
For your rating, did you get granted 100% from the initial application, or did you end up having to go through some appeals?
Absolutely not. No, I was initially 90, which was great. Oh my goodness, that was life changing. It really was. It was life changing.
Yeah.
At the time, which is it's crazy. It was like $1,800 a month, which for some people is like, that's like not even my mortgage. In 2019, for a 22-year-old guy who was all screwed up in the head, it was life changing. And I, it was months and months after that, I would be talking to people, oh, you should be at 100%, you should be at 100%. And people don't understand, like, it's not just another 10. It's not just a little like boop, to get from 90 to
Right.
100%. It's,
We get that question all the time.
yeah,
We're like, it's just another 10%.
no, it's a really big difference. But to be fair, it's also a big pay jump. Like, it's a very big difference to
Mm-hmm.
go from 90 to 100. It's not like 80 to 90, right? So
Right.
it's not like, don't know the word for it, but it's not the same amount.
Right. And the pay scale is on VA's website for people watching. You
Yes.
can see, but it's, I mean, I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head, but it's a couple $100 between 80 and 90%. And then I think it's like almost $2,000 difference,
Yeah.
$1,500 difference between 90 and 100% disability, depending on how many dependents you have and all of that. It's a
Not to
big jump.
mention, not to mention if you happen to get permanent in total, the amount of other kind of fringe benefits you get, especially depending on if you're in like Tennessee or Texas, you're talking about, income tax reduction, or not, I'm sorry, not income tax, property tax reductions. Texas, I think too, has this, reduced fees on license plates, membership, all kinds of stuff that you access. But anyway, so no, I had to file multiple claims after, in order to, so I can't even remember at this point. I mean, I filed one, and they denied it for whatever reason, and I went and talked with my doctor, and she wrote a letter, and it was a whole thing. But it
And
wasn't
were you
until
navigating
recently.
this on your own, or did you
Yeah.
find support services that helped you figure out what to appeal? And
So the short answer is yes, I did find support services, and I paid a good bit of money, something like $4,000. I won't name the organization. And it started off really well. I was like, look, I need help with this because I don't know, I'm not able to navigate this by myself. And I went through the whole process. And one day they just kind of fell off the face of the earth. And I got an email that they were like updating their website. And then I went to the links that I had gotten in my email to like access my materials. And they were all dead links. All of them were
wow.
dead. And the website all of a sudden became dead. And I was like, what the heck? So thankfully my credit card company came through on that one. But yeah, they fell off the face of the earth. So, I mean, I think some of these organizations are definitely legit, these kind of like all in one, like we'll get you from not knowing to a genius, and all you have to pay is, $3,000, $4,000 up front. I'm sure some of them are legitimate, but some of them aren't. And
So, yeah, our
yeah.
position on that is that VA has a process to accredit representatives, and then VA has oversight. And so, if somebody does something like takes your money and then doesn't provide a service, or has people doing things that they don't follow up with their continuing education credits, or anyway, if they do anything kind of out of line, if they're charging fees that VA determines are excessive, because VA has regulations on how much accredited agents and accredited attorneys can charge
Oh, I didn't
and
know
what
that.
services they can charge for and can't charge for. So VA does not allow anybody to charge for initial applications or for preparing and assisting in filing new
Okay.
claims. So we focus on appeals. We can help people file new claims, but there are free services out there that are kind of more geared towards the initial claim or the new
Absolutely.
claims. And so we work like when VA gets something wrong and you need an attorney to help figure out like, okay, what's the strategy here? What pieces did VA miss? Do we need new evidence? Is there just like legal error where they didn't apply their own regulations correctly? Then we come on board to help with the strategy for the appeal, because we're not allowed to charge for new claims. But it's kind of a hot button issue in Congress right now. There's a bunch of these companies and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars. And so obviously they don't want to, some of them are making hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
They've got a fairly substantial lobbying budget, and
Holy
they're framing it for
smokes.
veterans as it's veterans' choice, which sounds nice. Like veterans should be able to choose who they want to work with. And if you want to work with somebody who's accredited or not accredited, like veterans aren't stupid. They should be able to choose who they want to work with.
Right.
The downside, I mean, there's reasons why states have lemon laws, right? Where like, yes, you can choose which vehicle you buy, but if a
Sure.
dealership
If it
sells you a
doesn't work,
lemon,
yeah.
there's regulations that come in and protect the consumer, the consumer protection. And because VA doesn't really have a branch to enforce people that they don't accredit or can accredit, it's kind of this gray area where you've got some good people that are operating, in the gray zone, but there's really no reason why they don't become accredited and then follow VA's guidelines on fees and helping veterans. So
And they kind of
VSOs
operate
are
like
accredited,
it's
but they don't charge. They're funded through. I think there's some money from Congress for like DAV and American Legion and VFW and different ones, and then they raise money internally with their fundraising efforts to help fund those efforts.
and that's what that grant money, right? Like that's something that we're looking to investigate too. Like there's money out there dedicated to in service of veterans, and it's important that it goes to folks who are really helping. Now, just like you said, there comes a point where you need to get an attorney to help you make the appeal, and I want to get to the point where we are actually able to help veterans with that cost. So yeah, or have like in-house somebody, in-house as an attorney to help out with those things. So those are our North Star goals. But right now we're just trying to get mattresses.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's an awesome goal, and we'll turn. I don't want to say we turn people away, but there's some mistakes that VA makes that are just like, listen, this was a very obvious mistake. All you have to do
Tell
is
them this.
XYZ. I can't guarantee that VA is going to do the right thing the second time around, but if you do XYZ, here's your next step, and and
Sure,
you don't need to hire an attorney. Like if I can get you there by telling you what to do in 15 minutes, then you don't need to hire us.
that makes
If it
sense. I think
involves, digging through the records and figuring out like what
it's
VA,
work.
this detailed thing and the nuance of applying the regulation on effective date when VA made clear and unmistakable error, or, failed to associate relevant service records with the file, like those kind of things. Like they're not something that you could just sort of tell someone in 15 minutes over the phone how to put together an argument and like what's missing from their file without doing a thorough review. But like there's a gap there, right? With like the ones where it's just like, listen, all you need to do is like they got this wrong. Just file something and tell them what they missed. And
Or like this, like they're not like this is a very explicit. That's what's great about the VA is a lot of the law in there is very explicit. It's like this is how it works, and it's not like up for interpretation. So I appreciate that. And now you probably have more experience, and you're probably like, well, I would beg to differ, but at least from what I've been able to tell, things have been pretty clear. And in my case, at least, when raiders have come back and been like, it says this, and this is going on with X. I've been able to have somebody say, no, it clearly says right here that the VA has written that he's in the right or whatever, and I appreciate that.
we're jaded from the attorney perspective because the stuff that we deal with has usually been through the ringer. Like, I mean, I wish people came to us more often after their first denial because we could be like, okay, here's what we can do to fix it. But a lot of times people try on their own multiple times. By the time they come to us, they've been fighting the system for 10 years. And it's kind of like untangling that necklace that's been sitting in your jewelry box, and you're like picking stuff off and trying to like figure
Yeah.
out where it went wrong at what steps. So the stuff that we see tends to be more complex, but you're right. Like a lot of the stuff really is pretty simple. Like the code says that if you have this injury in service and you have this disability now, and there's a reasonable connection between the two, then you should be granted. Or if it's you were exposed to this toxin and now you develop this disease, it should be automatically granted. And there's not really
Right.
room to argue. It's just if VA gets it wrong because they miscategorized a diagnosis or something like that, it should be really open and shut. And I think now that VA is using AI, a lot of the like simple errors
Yes.
are, it's sort of 50-50. A lot of the simple errors should be avoided because there's not room for human error
That's what I was thinking
when the
too.
AI is being applied, but there's room for AI error. and,
True.
and
That's
yeah,
why we still need like some like senior people to be reviewing to make sure like, okay, did the robot do a good job? Because sometimes the robot does
yeah,
a great job, but sometimes the
yeah.
robot it completely misses the mark. And it's a known error. Like it's a known thing in AI, it's called hallucination, and it will very clear. I'm sure you've seen the legal cases. Like it'll very clearly tell you like I'm citing these 4 legal cases, and none of them are real. They're completely made up.
Yeah.
It makes
Oh yeah,
mistakes.
no, that's when we get people who come to us and they're like, "Well, I ran my arguments through ChatGPT and it says I should argue this. Can you tell me why ChatGPT is wrong, or can you just like file my ChatGPT written brief?" And I'm like, "It sounds really good, but it's actually applying this incorrectly, and here's
Yeah,
why." And here, and I know you think that this applies here, but
it's not good at legal
it doesn't
stuff.
apply in your case, and here's why. And yeah, it gets a lot messier.
It's great
And
at
it might,
code. It's great at writing
yeah,
code. I'll tell you that. It's great at writing code. It's not super great with legal stuff.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. And so one of the questions I want to ask you, so you are 100% disabled now and you are working full time. Did you ever struggle with that decision? Were you concerned that you wouldn't be able to work at 100%?
No, because when I was rated at 90%, there's that option, and I'm blanking on the term, but it basically means if you're unable to work, you can be rated like you can be like at the 100% rating, but it's not schedular. It's something else.
TDIU, total
That's
disability
it.
based on individual unemployability.
That's it.
Yep,
That's the one.
exactly. And so,
I did not want to do
yeah.
that. I did not
So
want to
you
do
said,
that.
okay, I want to keep working. I'm going to keep
Yes,
pushing for that 100%.
yes, absolutely. Because unless you like really, really can't work, and there are some people who really, really can't work, but that wasn't me. Like I wanted to do something. Like I got to get out there. I'm very type A personality. It drives my wife insane, but I have to be doing something. So I was like, no, like 90s good. 90s great. I'm going to keep trying to, find a career. And it became easier and easier, right? Like as I got treatment. And now I am a software engineer because of the VA. And it's not just because of the money. It's because I did a program called the Vet Tech program, which you haven't heard about. If your listeners haven't heard about and they have any interest in changing careers and getting into tech and you're a veteran, you got to look at this, because all you need to have, I want to say, is like 1 month or something left on your GI Bill. It may be even less than that. And you can go
Wow.
to these cybersecurity or software engineering or, I mean, data science, all these different like boot camps that would normally cost 15, $20,000. You're talking like 4, 5, 6 month long boot camps that you get to go to for free, and you get paid a little bit of a housing stipend to be able to go and do them. So I was
So
like,
it's
heck yeah.
separate from it's you said it's connected to the GI Bill, but it's separate from vocational rehabilitation
Yes.
education, VRNE.
Yes.
But you only need 1 month left, but you can go to a 6 month boot
I
camp.
think I can't remember the exact time frame that you have to have left on your GI Bill, but yeah, you can go to. I think mine was 5 or 6 months. It was called Full Stack Academy, and it was before they were just bought out by some other company, but it was back in the day. And I was going 8 hours a day to school online and then spending another 4 hours a day studying, doing projects, like intense work that again, other kids were like taking out loans for, and not just kids, like adults, like people who wanted to get back into their career. Maybe we had a couple of moms who like their kids were grown now and they had gotten to school and they're like, okay, I want to go back to do something. And I got out of that, and they taught us like, we got like career coaching, and they taught us how to like do our resumes. And I got out and I got a job within like a few months, like a good job, like paid more than I'd ever been paid before. Right after that,
That's
it was
awesome.
awesome, and I could work remote. So now I get to travel full time, and yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, you told me before we started filming, but can you tell the
Yeah.
audience
Oh yeah, sure.
where you're filming
We
from
are
and what your living situation is now?
we were camped
I
in
think that's cool.
Montana. Camped in Montana. We are on the internet because we've got a Starlink satellite out front, and we can work from anywhere in the country. I have to stay in the country because I work for a, oh my goodness, like we do like government contracts and stuff. It's called SAIC. We're Fortune 500. We do like stuff for the government. So I can't leave the States and work, but yeah, it's super cool. And on top of that, That's not the only thing. I'm working full time doing that. And then I'm moonlighting doing work for this nonprofit called Worth Their Weight that we were talking about for a little bit. And that's where my real passion is, because I, I, I love doing this work. Like, I look forward to it every day. Like, I want to get veterans to where they need to be. It's my passion.
Yeah, I was thinking because you have the background in tech, I know there's some like apps out there that are helping veterans file claims, but I something you said earlier, it kind of resonated. I think a lot of the veterans that really need help connecting to services aren't necessarily the ones that are super savvy with navigating va.gov. You have to
Yeah.
get a id.me account or two-factor, three-factor authentication.
It's hard
Some
for
people don't
me
have
sometimes.
email. Like,
I work in tech and it's hard for me sometimes. I work in tech and I'm 30 years old. You're going to expect a 70-year-old guy to know how to navigate this stuff? That's asinine. Not only that, but they have to have the will to do it. They have to want to do it. So you're going to find a 70-year-old veteran who wants to use technology to get access to his VA care because he has a disability because of his time in service. Not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen. So these guys that need it the most, they wind up not getting the care that they need. So that's something else that we're doing is we're working on starting kind of not similar to a vet tech, but called the Vet Connect program, where for the folks that need it where there is that knowledge gap with using technology, getting them a tablet and then teaching them how to use it. So teaching them how to use the VA, getting them signed up, how to use other, useful applications, email, making sure they have an email, getting them set up so that they can be successful with their new VA benefits in modern society.
yeah, yeah, because especially with, I mean, when stuff comes in the mail, there's like a 2 week delay, and
Yeah.
sometimes and we used to have we're not seeing the problem as much anymore, but we're also kind of the intermediary for our clients. It used to be that when VA was scheduling exams for people, they would send out a paper notification, and sometimes that notification would show up 2 weeks after the exam
Yeah.
was scheduled, and then VA would ding the veteran and say, "Well, you missed your exam," and they're like, "Well, I got it on the 17th, and you told me I had to be there on the 12th, and I can't turn
Yeah.
back time to get there. Like, what do you want me to
What do you
do?"
expect me to do? And to be fair, the VA website has become very sophisticated. Like, it's become really nice. You can see where your claim is in the process. I can book a doctor's appointment. I can visit my doctor online. I can get prescriptions filled. You can do everything online, but again, you have to know how to use it
Yeah,
and you have to be able to access
yeah.
it. And
I
so people
I,
don't have that
I
access.
learned recently in our community, there's the librarian will teach classes at the senior center about how to navigate your iPhone. I was like, man, I want to. I mean, I'm not bad at it, but there's things the younger generations can do with iPhones that it would be nice to learn how to do. I was like, can I go to
Yeah.
the senior center yet and get these classes on how to use your iPhone? But yeah, just
The
having
more the merrier.
I guess every library is a little bit different, but there are those programs, and it would be really cool. And I guess part of what you guys are doing is sort of helping vet some of these resources, because some VSOs are awesome and some also don't. They might be accredited or have their license through the
Or
VA,
they're
but
too busy,
they don't have access to VA's online system. And so, if they're
right?
not tech savvy, are they really serving the veterans as well as they should be or could be?
And that's part of our process too, is like vetting folks. Like, if we have a VSO who is like not responsive or just isn't a good fit, we'll move on. Like, we'll find the next one, because we there's no time. This process takes too long as it is. Like, there's no time to delay in the middle. So that's part of what we do too, is just remove any sort of roadblocks or anything blocking the veteran from getting from point A to point Z when it comes to their claim.
That's awesome. Are you guys
Thank
doing
you.
anything about getting veterans rides to their exams if they're
Yes, absolutely. So
you
Uber
mentioned the
has been our
Uber
best
analogy,
friend.
and I was like, oh, speaking of Uber,
Yeah, no. Speaking of Uber, we have you, and I don't. They don't endorse us, or and vice versa. Or I guess we endorse them by using them, but no, we We've paid for a few Ubers at this point to get veterans to and from, folks who don't have rides. We actually so excited about this. Our veteran liaison, Kristen, she's fantastic, but she went to a community in Chattanooga and spoke with a bunch of veterans there, all of them older adults. And the VSO is actually going to be going to, I've never heard of this before. She's going to go to that community in order to help all these veterans and, go to those appointments there and have them all. There's like 5 or 6 people there, and they're all going to be able to do things right there at the community instead of having to organize rides. So super, super happy that she's doing that for us. But yeah, it's amazing
That's
how,
awesome.
yeah, it is. It really is. And it's amazing how people, I've worked in tech for a few years now. And obviously I've worked in startups as well, and it's super fun. My wife works for a startup now. It's very fun. It's exciting. It's like, okay, how do we, we want to be $1 billion company. We want to how do we make as much money as possible? And it's super fun. But what is really great about the startup world is you're not appealing to people's business minds. You're appealing to their hearts. And you really get to see the best side of everybody you encounter in this work, because everybody is okay, how can we help? What can we do to help? What can we do to get veterans where they need to be? And it's just awesome. I love it. I really do.
That's really cool. Okay, I did want to ask you, but I didn't want to interrupt you at the time.
No,
So you were
please.
talking about being deep in a depression hole, and I mean, you kind of mentioned that your wife helped get you out, but if you're willing to talk about it, uh,
Yeah.
we've had people on before that have kind of talked about different modalities for treating or processing PTSD, but was it just a time thing? Was there something that worked for you that?
Honestly, I needed medication. And I know some people feel different ways about psych medication. I needed it because at the end of the day, my chemicals are off. My brain, and this was so important for me to accept. I did not come out of the military with the same brain that I went in with. I just didn't. It's different now. And I had to accept that and love that and appreciate it and recognize it. If I, you can look at pictures of me. If me from 2015 looked at me in 2025 or 26, they would not recognize me. It's a different human. And I had to accept that about myself, and then accept the fact that those chemicals are different in my brain, and my brain doesn't make things the way that it used to. And so I need a little help. So I take 2 different types of psych medications. And um, for anybody who takes psych meds, you know this. It takes a while. It's not like throwing an Advil in or a few Advil in and feeling better in 15-20 minutes. It takes weeks. And that scared the shit out of me. When the doctor told me, because when I was deep in that hole and I was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna get back on the meds, because I heard, the side effects, you won't be able to have sex, you won't be able to feel anything anymore, you'll be a zombie, all that scared me.
Mhm.
I wanted to treat it holistically. And I know that some of those things happen to people. I'm very, and I said that my wife said at the time, I said at the time, I'm sorry if this is crass, but I don't care if we'll get you Viagra, but I need my husband. We don't care. Um, and yeah, like I said, you can cut that if you want, but that's where we were. So
No, I think
happily,
that's a a valid part of the process that a
yeah,
lot of people have, and you know, ED secondary to PTSD or secondary to depression, whether it's from the meds or from the condition itself, is one of the more common claims that we see. But I think people are you don't want to talk about it.
yeah,
A lot of people are
but
just
it's
yeah, I deal with that, but I don't want to tell the doctors or tell the government what
yeah,
happens in my bedroom.
yeah. Well, hey, here's the thing. I'm told that those medications are very expensive. So yeah, if you get it claimed, you get the doctor to send them to you for free through the VA. But anyway, so I got on those meds, and we were living in Florida at the time. We moved to Florida to where my childhood vacation home was, and Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, which is right on the Emerald Coast, right on the Panhandle. And we're living there. It was paradise. It really was. And my wife was, huge. And we were out riding in our Jeep and out swimming and just having such a wonderful time. And it was so magical. And we were like, we have to move down here. And we did. And then sure enough, after my daughter was born, I slipped a few times on my meds, and I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I don't need to, I'm only taking 10 milligrams, or it's no big deal. I think I'm fine. I feel better. And I think that's a big mistake people make a lot is, you start taking these
Mm.
psych meds and you're like, oh, I feel better. Like I can get off of them now. So I did that. And, my doctor forgives me happily now, but, and I just went into a horrible postpartum depression after my daughter was born. It was my wife got really sick during the delivery. It was very traumatic. There was a lot of like family trauma that we dealt with and frankly are still kind of dealing with to this day. And it was just a really hard time. And I think my body just shut down. My brain was like, I'm out, I'm done. And my dad wound up coming down and having to basically help my wife take care of me, even though my mother-in-law was there and she was up in Tennessee. So she kept having to like come down to help. And it was really dark. So my dad wound up coming down and we drove up to stay with him in Chattanooga. And my wife was like, that was when we had that conversation. Like, look, I don't care where you're going to go on these medications. Cause like, I'm not going to lose you. So I started on Lexapro and Wellbutrin and it took honestly months to really kick in. But once they did, that things just didn't feel so hard and dark and heavy anymore. And I like there was like a lightness and a joy and there was laughter and singing in our home again. And everything got better. And I'm so pleased to be here today. Like the one thing that I will, other than the organization, like the one thing that has come out of this is an appreciation for my wife and her strength, and B, which is that organization. And yeah, I wouldn't take it back. Like I'm glad that it happened. Oh, and sorry, there was a third thing, which is my appreciation for life. Like every day I wake up and I'm grateful that I'm not in that hole.
And so you don't seem like a zombie. Like I know medications hit different people, different medications. It's not like like your medications are going to necessarily work for the next guy who has a TBI or
Sure.
depression or anxiety or, I mean, my understanding is it's an art and a science, and
Yeah.
your doctors have to kind of figure it out and what's going to work with you. And there's a little bit of science and a little bit of trial and error to get the right dosing. But
Which
I
is
hear that a
not to
lot.
be
Like, I don't
played
want to be a
down.
zombie. If I take it, I won't feel anything anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, just having this conversation with you, you can tell that you're not
Thank you. Yes, I hope
monotone. You're
that comes
not,
through. If that
yeah.
comes through, that's the Wellbutrin. It really like that's the Wellbutrin. So my particular brain, because you're absolutely right. And for those weeks there where we stayed with my dad while I got on the meds and like got stabilized, like there were days where I couldn't get out of bed. Like there were days where I wanted to be dead, and I made it was awful because in some ways, like with some people, like it gets worse before it gets better. So that time of like getting on the meds like is a very scary time. At least it was for me. And when I came out of it, I just started with Lexapro, and I was on Lexapro, and I was a little bit of a zombie. And it was nice to not feel super down all the time, but like I also like wanted to feel something. Like I wanted to feel sad when something was sad, or like a sense of urgency when there needed to be a sense of urgency, and everything felt like kind of whatever, no biggie. I didn't like that. So the Wellbutrin gives me that like little bit of a lift, like a little like it brightens it a little bit for me at least. And yeah, that's been a real game changer.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that the way that you talk about and think about the brain as an organ in the body and
Yeah.
not like a symbol that you're somehow defective as a human being or something. Because I think a lot of people are like,
Yeah.
well, if I take medication, I mean, I hear, if I take medications, I'll turn into a zombie. If I take medications, I have to admit that there's something wrong with me. Let's see, what are some of the other ones we hear? Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's just like
there's all kinds of there's
it's
all kinds
if
of
your
stuff.
liver is
There's like
broken, you take enzymes for your liver. If your
right.
brain is broke, if parts of your brain aren't functioning right, the neurons aren't firing like they're supposed to, you take medications that help them fire correctly.
My dad, he's one of the best people I know. He's an attorney as well. He's in Chattanooga. He's a very highly regarded family law attorney, Cory Gold, and he was the one that told me that, because I was like, God, I can't do, because we were staying with him. Like I can't do anything. Like what's wrong with me? And he was like, hey bud, like you were big into working out. Like if you pulled a muscle, like did you go and train that muscle at the gym, or did you let it rest for a while until it got better? And I was like, well, yeah, obviously, I let it rest. He said, okay, well, that's what you're doing. Like you pulled a muscle in your head And it's a little out of whack. It's broken right now. I can't remember how he said it. And so you're just going to need to rest it for a while and put it on us, put it on the rest of your family. And it was me, my wife, my dad, and my mother-in-law and my daughter and me, all of us very neurodivergent people living in a house together, coexisting. And it was something. It was something. There was a lot of good, there was a lot of bad, there was a lot of dark, and there was a lot of bright. But like I said before, if I didn't have that support, I don't think I would have made it. I don't think I would have made it.
Yeah.
And we don't have to talk details about that. But I mean, yeah, I don't think I would have made it out.
Yeah, I know. And VA has a caregiver support program that can be kind of challenging to navigate sometimes. But if you get into that program, I know it can provide a lot of support for the people who are caregivers, whether it's, I think people think it's got to be somebody who's bedridden or whatever, but we
Yeah.
see it a lot with people who are dealing with mental health issues that need help just
I had
kind of
no idea.
functioning day to day.
You taught me so. I had no idea because we would have looked into that. Seriously, I had no idea. I had no
Yeah.
idea. But it wasn't until you asked about the 100%. It wasn't until after that episode where I wound up getting 100% with with all of my conditions. And I can't remember what they call it, but it's like 100%. And then if your other ratings amount to 60%, it's a little bit
Special monthly
extra.
compensation at the S
Yes.
level.
Yes.
Yep. And so that's, I was actually just talking to a colleague of mine about the special monthly compensation at the S level because they
Oh,
call
okay.
it homebound or housebound because there's two special monthly compensation SMCS. And you can either get it if you have one single condition rated at 100% and other conditions combined at 60% or more, then you get this bump up. So people say, oh, you can't get more than 100%. Under certain circumstances, you can get more than 100%
Right.
with special monthly compensation. And then the other way that you get SMCS is if you're physically homebound and you can't, so if you're
Ooh.
bedridden or if you've got agoraphobia to the point that you can't leave your house but there's two very different ways to get the same rating and they call it both. And so sometimes we'll see a decision that says, oh, you've got, I don't know how your decision was written, but sometimes I've seen it where they'll say, you're getting special monthly compensation for housebound veteran. And you're like, I go to the grocery store. Like
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm out
I can go to the
playing
store.
catch with my daughter. Like,
Yeah.
probably not with your daughter because she's probably not old enough to. Nice. Yeah, but yeah, a lot of people they either think 100 is the cap, and it is
Yes.
for a lot of people 100 is the cap. And so if you're 100%, you're like, well, I'm just going to file for one more thing. I'm just going to file for one more thing. Like at a certain point, you're wasting your time and your
Yeah.
energy unless there's some strategy that it's going to enable you to get one of the levels of special monthly compensation, which VA labels them as letters. So there's SMCS, there's SMCL,
To
and
make it
then
more confusing.
SMCM, and then there's half steps. And so you can have like and a half. I'm like, who
What?
thought of this system? Like,
That's
but yeah,
crazy.
if you need aid and attendance, so there's if there's a whole set of regulations that govern the ratings above 100% for various situations. So if you're blind and an amputee or, there, there's combinations that would get you different levels of special monthly compensation.
Because those folks need
But that's a
extra
good
care.
point
Like
to
there's certain people who need the extra money to pay for the extra things that you
in-home
need to pay
care.
for.
Yeah. And whether you're paying a professional to come in and help you or your spouse or your parent or your neighbor or whatever has to take time off from work, but they can't work a full-time job because you need help with certain things.
Exactly.
You can get that. Sometimes you can get that higher level,
That was
depending
our
on your
scenario.
circumstances. So
That was our
yeah,
scenario there for a little bit where, I mean, like my dad had to take a little bit of, like, he wasn't able to work as much as he could. So that would have been super great to know. But again, there's another great example of that knowledge gap between knowing like how to find these benefits. And if the knowledge isn't there, then the people who need it the most aren't able to get it.
right. And yeah, and the caregiver support program. So there's aid and attendance in the special monthly compensation, which is done through Veteran Benefit Administration. The caregiver support program is run through the Veteran Health Administration, so like through the VA hospitals. They've recognized that
Oh.
they need to provide counseling support and financial compensation for family caregivers that are taking time away from work to help care for their veteran loved one. But it's because it's run through VHA, it's got its own system of appeals, and it's just it can be it's if you get a social worker who signs off on your case right away, it can be an awesome benefit. But navigating the appeal
Sure.
system for that has been challenging, not just for us, but I talked to a lot of our colleagues in different law firms, and
And you're
it's been a
location
challenge.
agnostic, right? Like you can work with people all over the country. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we're
That's
based
nice.
in St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay area, but yeah,
Oh,
we've got
nice.
remote platforms. Like, I mean, you're in Montana right now, and we're we're talking. I'm here
Yeah,
in Florida.
absolutely.
So yeah, same with our clients, and we actually have clients that live overseas. I mean, there's some people that just kind of move overseas, but there's definitely pockets where if you were stationed in Aviano, Italy, or Rota, Spain, or and
Like the Philippines
after
too,
service, you want
maybe.
to.
Do you have anybody that live in the Philippines? I feel like some folks move to the Philippines. Some people move to different places though after they get rated because cost of living, like they're able to actually,
Hmm.
live off of their, because in the US, even 100% is not a whole ton in most places. So I
Yeah,
know
we
some
have
people
a
move.
client a former client who was able to move to Portugal,
Oh,
and
cool.
on the 100% disability. And I didn't realize, I knew Portugal was maybe one of the more affordable European countries, but I think of the euro as, I mean, I just didn't know the cost of living in Portugal.
Yeah.
And he was telling us that he's able to live, you know, kind of top of the,
Oh
in his
my.
town, he's living top of the line with just on his VA disability pay alone.
What?
And, yeah, we definitely have people in Panama. There's a VA hospital in Panama. There's a VA hospital in Manila in the Philippines.
I
So
didn't
a lot
know
of people
that.
end up kind of retiring, or whether they're retiring from the military, or, retiring from the US workforce, because,
Sure.
on $4,000 a month, give or take, you can live pretty well in some of these other countries. And if they also have you know, a strong expat community and VA healthcare, like,
Yeah,
I mean, there's reasons
absolutely.
why people wouldn't want to if you've got a good network, a support network, and your family's here. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, we definitely see that of people settling where they were last stationed, or finding another country to move to after they get their benefits.
Especially, if, I mean, I'm sure a lot of folks out there maybe get married or they find somebody local that lives there and maybe their family's in that country. Yeah, that's a great situation. And I didn't know about the VA hospitals internationally. I had no idea that there were VA
There's
hospitals
a
anywhere besides the
handful.
US.
Yeah. I
Very
will
cool.
say, that if you're trying to navigate a VA claim from overseas,
That's
it
going to
can
be
be
tough.
challenging if you have to go get a compensation and pension exam. We've had people where, they're trying to schedule it while they're home on leave, and then, because of the way that VA contracts out those exams, the timing doesn't line up right, or they'll send it out to they'll contract it out, and you have to go find somebody in your community to fill out a US government form, but you're dealing with an Italian doctor who doesn't
Yeah.
fully understand, or, an Indian doctor, wherever you're located, they don't
Yeah.
fully understand the term disability. And so for VA, a disability could be arthritis in your knee. You've got patellofemoral pain syndrome. So that just basically means your knee's injured
Years.
and you've got pain when you move your knee. But the doctor's looking at it, and they're in another country, and they're like, he's not disabled. He doesn't have polio. He doesn't have, he's not missing a leg. Like, that's not a
Yeah.
real disability. And so they'll mark no, because they don't understand. They don't, depending on where it is, like, we definitely see some issues with getting the CMP exams processed overseas. They have a system for it. It's just not,
That's difficult.
it's not as smooth as the system in the US, and as many kinks as the system in the US has. Imagine that amplified
Yeah.
overseas.
Oh my goodness, yes. No, but I mean, for folks and I guess there always is unless you're P&T, there's always the risk of a re-exam or re-eval. But I mean, once you get your rating, then I feel like you'd be okay to make your way to expatriate, so it were.
Yeah, we don't see too many re-examinations unless somebody does. And I mean, granted, we're dealing on the appeal side, so maybe they're happening in the community, but we're not really seeing them unless it's something that VA deemed initially was a temporary disability, or like, hey,
Sure.
it's adjustment disorder while you're getting out of the service, we're going to give you this temporary rating, then we're going to readdress it in 5 years to see if it's turned into a more permanent condition, if it was just some stress with the adjustment. If you have cancer, they kind of assume that it's going to go into remission at some point, and so then you get
Right.
so there's certain things that
That
like
makes
are not going
sense.
to be a permanent rating. But a lot of even if it's not permanent in total, VA will write on the code sheet, which I think doesn't always get mailed with the rating decision. And we can see it because we've got access. If we're representing somebody, we can see the code sheet. But it'll say static disability, and that means that VA is not going to reevaluate it unless so
Oh.
you could be permanent but not total. So if all of the disabilities that you have VA is marked as static, that means they're not going to reschedule you for another exam.
It's interesting you say that because there was some way to look at it in like the metadata on the VA website. Like, I can't remember how I did it, but I opened like the console tools while I was on VA, and I could actually see like a JSON snippet of which were static, and the only one that wasn't static was my psych rating, because I don't know, I guess because they had just raised it from what it was before. And I guess because of that, it was out of that 5 year mark. So they determined, okay, I guess it could still change, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and typically, and typically, depending on what the psych rating is and whatnot, they don't reevaluate those,
Oh,
and you're
okay.
not going to get penalized. I mean, it depends. I don't want to say like you have a psych rating, it's not going to be reevaluated, but we don't see a lot of those just kind of automatically getting reevaluated.
Okay.
And I think part of the reasoning is that VA doesn't want to penalize you for like finding the right medication
That's
protocol that
another
works.
big
Like
thing. That's another
it's
big thing. I don't want to
it's a
get
roller
better.
coaster, but it's not like they're behind the scenes going like, okay, you told your shrink today that you're feeling well. Like now we're going to reduce you because you had a good day. Like,
Yeah.
you should be able to have honest conversations with your care team. And there's going to be good days. There's probably still going to be some bad days. The goal is that like with its disability pay, that it relieves some of the stress of having to have, being reliant on having a job that maybe you weren't
Yeah.
happy in, or, not being able to go back to school or whatnot. And so it kind of relieves some of that stress and that you can live a happier life. But yeah,
Exactly.
we,
It's exactly what it did
we're
for me.
not, it's always something that we're kind of monitoring because it's like VA giveth, VA taketh away. Like,
Yeah.
our, you have it and people are really nervous, but like, I've got this rating, like
I
now I'm not going to
was.
file anything else. And that's something we'll consult on too. If people are like, I have this rating, but I'm thinking about filing something else, and we can tell them, hey, listen, filing that's not going to get you special monthly compensation, and filing that might trigger them to take another look at if you're rated for, cognitive impairments for TBI and you want to file a claim for PTSD,
They're probably going to
it might like
reevaluate.
there's overlap there. It might trigger them to
That happened to
relook
me.
at the two of them and figure out do you get two separate ratings, or are all the symptoms kind of combined
That's exactly what
and
happened to
so
me. I filed for some secondary conditions to my psych stuff, and it triggered that reevaluation. But the reevaluation, I wound up going from 70 to 100 because of, you know, the those stints where I was incapable of not just working, but of kind of existing. But I mean, like you said, if I feel like if you're filing, like if I'm okay now, I've got like knee pain because of my lower, my back injury. I don't feel like filing that is going to make them go, okay, well, we're going to take a look at that PTSD again. Like, it doesn't make any
correct.
sense.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't. I mean, we're with the AI stuff that they're putting into place. If you open stuff up, they'll look at, to try to find errors or try to find. They're saying that
Sure.
they're looking for fraud just in, there's those companies that will rubber stamp anything that the veteran says or rubber stamp stuff that the veteran didn't say. So there's fraudulent companies out there, and I think they're trying to identify those and try to blacklist them or do something about them. But yeah, no, if you're filing for your knee, there's no reason that would reopen your PTSD claim unless you said your knee was caused because of your PTSD for some reason. And
Right.
I've seen crazier things that people put on their forms, but yeah, I wouldn't see how that under most circumstances how those two would be connected. So it shouldn't open it
Absolutely.
up.
But that was me for a while. It was, I lived in terror. Like, okay, now like I need this extra money to ease this financial burden. But what if I get reevaluated and it just goes away? Like that scared the hell out of me for years.
And that's something we'll also talk to clients about. Like, let's talk about what symptoms you're having and whether, like, because sometimes people get rated 70% for PTSD. And it's kind of like their symptoms are sort of between the 50 and the 70% rating. And VA was like, well, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt
Sure.
which they should do. But, it's like maybe VA was being generous with that 70%. And so if you get
Right.
reevaluated, would somebody else check the box that says you're at 50%? And so is there a risk that if you go back to another reevaluation that they might lower it? And we'll kind of talk through those symptoms with people and then how to talk about your symptoms. I mean, I'm not going to put words in anyone's mouth, but like, how do you describe your symptoms
Right.
in a way that's going to
Make
get
sure you're
the
sharing,
examiner to record it in a way that the rater is going to then give you the right rating for it.
like
But
make sure
I've
you're
got
telling
other
them how you're
clients
actually
where,
doing. Like don't sugarcoat anything.
like, for example, having suicidal ideation, so thinking about suicide, even if you know that you're never going to do it, VA has said that alone is typically warrants a 70% rating.
Oh wow, I didn't know
And
that.
and so if you have documented suicidal ideation and whether it comes and goes, even if you don't have a plan, VA really can't reduce you down to 50% under most circumstances. I mean, I'm a lawyer, so there's always like that, you know, there's always that crazy circumstance that like doesn't fit the regular mold, but like and if you're at active risk of danger to yourself or others. So if you're high risk of suicide
Hmm.
or harm to yourself, we've got people that aren't really like trying to commit suicide, and this is a really kind of dark subject, but it affects a lot of our clients and a lot of the population
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
you're
And
serving.
listeners,
That can qualify for the 100% rating. And so like if we see those symptoms and someone's like, well, I don't want to get another reevaluation because it might lower my rating. Like, yeah, VA can do crazy stuff, but if your symptoms really very clearly meet the higher criteria, like that's always something that we can just get corrected on appeal if VA does do something wonky. But most of the time they're going to see that and be like, yep, it's gotten worse for you. You deserve the higher rating level.
and it's great that because some people are doing work like you're doing and like really like helping vets navigate these things and overcoming those fears and overcoming that and being like, hey, like I get why you're concerned about this, but it's not going to happen. Or, that's what we were here for. Like, that's why we are here to help
Mhm.
you and to be in your corner. And it should never feel predatory.
But yeah, like you said, like it shouldn't be predatory. And so I've had conversations with veterans where I'm like, listen, I am confident and I'm not, as an attorney, I'm not allowed to make promises or
Yeah.
representations on what VA is going to do. But based on my experience, based on the symptoms you're experiencing, your medical records, what you're telling me, you very clearly qualify for the higher rating. But talking to that person, the thought of going through the process again and having to justify why they're there or even having to go through another CMP exam and talk to that examiner again, even with my reassurances, is just that's going to add more stress. And that might be the trigger that causes them to do something to harm themselves or
Yeah.
it's gonna harm their family more to go through that process. So we'll have that conversation, be like, listen, this is how much money is on the table for you, going forward. This is the difference between where you are and where we think we can get you, back pay and prospective pay and all of that, just so you can make an informed decision. Is
Right.
this something that you're comfortable moving forward with? And if at the end of the day you understand what money you're leaving on the table, but it's not worth your mental health, like you can always revisit it later. You might lose
Sure.
that back pay if you don't pursue something, but you can always come back in 3 years when you're in a healthier mental space and be like, okay, now I'm ready to address this. If you want to, you're never like walking away from something forever.
So like if in 6 months you feel like, hey, I'm not ready right now, but maybe in 6 months, 9 months, or a year, you can go ahead and do that. I think it's called an intent to apply, and that'll kind of mark your spot, as it were, to get that back pay later on, if you wind up, actually applying for that.
Yeah, the intent to file, and you can fill
That's
out
it.
the actual form. Isn't There's an intent to file form, but also if you go onto VA's website and you just start an application, that kind of bookmarks so as long as you complete the application within a year,
Yeah.
if you eventually get granted, it would go back to the date. So sometimes like people are like, well, I don't know if I have this condition. I don't know if if I
I need
want
to
to
get
go
more
forward with this one or
evidence.
not. Yeah, you start your application, go on va.gov, start your application, or send in the intent to file ITF form, which is a
That's what I
one-page form.
did.
You don't have to tell them what conditions you're planning on filing for. Just like, hey, I plan on filing something in the next year. And as long as you get your application in within that year, then anything that's granted would go back to the date of the intent to file. So you get more back pay while you're sort of getting your ducks in a row and stuff. So that's a helpful
Absolutely.
tool for a lot of people.
That's exactly what happened to me. I was like, I have these conditions, but I need to see a specialist because like I haven't been diagnosed, but like these things are happening. And so went ahead and did the intent to file. So that way it would go back to that date. So yeah. And again, like you said, those resources are online, but you have to know how to use it. Like you can go online and do that
Yeah.
yourself. Like I don't have to call you to do the intent to file. I can make an account on va.gov and do my intent to file there.
Yeah. Cory, before we go, is there anything else that like if people are thinking about filing claims or if they got a decision and they're not happy with is there any advice that you would want to leave veterans with?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you're welcome to call us. If you're in this process and you need a battle buddy, like that's what we're here for. If you're worried about getting started and you need a battle buddy, that's what we're here for. And we are, once again, no cost to the veterans. So we're always here if you need us. That goes out to all veterans. But if you're thinking about applying and you're on the fence and you feel like, oh, well, like I don't deserve it, or like I don't really need that. Remember, it's not just about you. Like it's about the people around you. It's about your loved ones. And by getting some financial relief, by getting some, healthcare, if that's going to ease the burdens in your life and that's going to, take some weight off of your shoulders and it's going to lighten your load a bit more, you need to pursue that, not just for you, but also for those people around you, because they want to see you at 100% or as close to it as possible. Not 100% rated, but 100% yourself or as close as possible. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Cory. Put
Yeah.
your contact information, your organization contact information and resources that you talked about in the show notes. And for anyone who has any questions or comments, please leave them here. If they're for Cory, we'll make sure we get them over to him. And thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.